Imagine this, a lonely cowboy riding through the dust of a fading Texas sunset, burdened by ghosts of his past, when suddenly a barefoot little girl with a torn dress stepped out of the shadows and whispered, "Mama said you might help." That one sentence shattered his solitude forever, pulling him into a storm of danger, betrayal, hidden love, and a bond stronger than blood. This is not just a story, it's a journey you will never forget. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories like this. Stories that grab your soul, break your heart, and heal it all over again. The dusk was heavy on the plains when Jace Turner tightened the reins of his horse, Duke, and heard the whisper that would change everything. "Mama said you might help." He turned and saw her, barefoot, clutching a ragged doll no more than 7 years old. She looked like a ghost of a childhood he once lost. Jace had lived years, promising never to care again, never to risk his heart after losing everyone he loved. But her trembling eyes held a plea he couldn't ignore. He knelt, asked her name, Ellie, and when she pointed toward a broken shack on the horizon, he lifted her into his arms and followed. Inside lay a woman pale with fever, breathing in shallow gasps. When her eyes opened, recognition struck Jace like a thunderbolt. "Jace Turner," she whispered. It was Sarah, the girl he had once known, once loved, and thought long gone. The past he had buried came rushing back, and with it a new responsibility that felt heavier than any saddle he had ever carried. The morning came slow and heavy over the Turner ranch, the sky painted with soft streaks of pink and gold. But the peace that usually accompanied dawn did not exist inside Jace's chest, for he had spent the entire night pacing the wooden floorboards, glancing again and again toward the small room where Sarah lay weak and feverish, her face pale, her lips dry, and Ellie curled tightly against her mother's side with the stubborn loyalty only a child's heart could hold. And Jace, hardened by years of loss and silence, felt something stirring inside him that he thought he had buried long ago, a dangerous, unwelcome tenderness. When Sarah's eyes opened with the fragile light of morning, they held a flicker of recognition that burned right through him, dragging up memories of childhood summers, of laughter shared by riversides, of stolen glances that hinted at a future. They never got to live, until the night she vanished without a word, leaving him to believe she was dead or lost forever. And now here she was, fragile but alive, breathing his name like a prayer she had carried in hiding. He demanded answers, his voice harsher than he intended, asking why she left, why she never told him, why after all this time she reappeared on his doorstep. And Sarah, her voice breaking, told him a story that would unravel everything he thought. He knew about his past, how years ago she had been called as a witness against the town's sheriff, a man so corrupt he had built his empire on fear, smuggling, and blood. How she had stood against him when no one else dared, and how for that, defiance, she paid the price. Her family destroyed, her safety stolen, until running was the only way to stay alive. And in her exile, Ellie had been born. Sarah admitted she never told Jace because she feared he would come after her, that his stubborn sense of loyalty would drive him straight into the sheriff's guns, and she couldn't let him die for her mistakes, so she carried her secret and raised Ellie in silence, teaching her to stay small, to stay hidden, until the sickness weakened Sarah so much she muttered Jace's name in fevered dreams, and Ellie, hearing it, believed it was a sign, believed this cowboy she had never met was the only man who could save them. Jace listened with his jaw tight, his fists clenching at his sides, torn between rage and heartbreak, because part of him wanted to scream at Sarah for shutting him out, for stealing from him the years he could have known this child, while another part of him looked at Ellie, sitting there with those green eyes so achingly familiar, and knew he would burn down the entire county if that's what it took to keep her safe. As the weight of Sarah's words settled, Jace walked to the window, staring out at the wide horizon, and though the field seemed quiet, He felt it in his bones. The sheriff's men were near, the noose tightening with every passing hour, and this ranch, once his fortress of solitude, was now a beacon drawing danger straight to its heart. Yet something in him had shifted. The drifter who once swore never to love again could no longer lie to himself, because the truth stood barefoot in his living room, holding a ragged doll, and looking at him like he was the only thing standing between her and the darkness. Jace turned back, his eyes settling on Sarah and Ellie, and in a voice low and steady, he said the words that sealed his fate. "You're safe here. Whatever comes, I'll handle it." He didn't know yet how deep the sheriff's reach ran, didn't know that every decision from this moment would drag him into a war he thought he had escaped. But he did know this. He was done running, done hiding, and for the first time in years he had something worth fighting for. And though the ghosts of his past whispered that he was cursed to lose everyone he cared for, Jace Turner silently vowed that this time he would not let go. The calm did not last long. By sundown, dust rose on the horizon as riders from the sheriff's gang closed in, their silhouettes sharp against the bleeding sky, and Jace knew the storm had finally reached his door. He sent Sarah and Ellie inside, his hand resting on the rifle that hadn't seen use in years, and when the first thug shouted his name, mocking him for hiding a traitor and her child, Jace stepped off the porch with the quiet confidence of a man who had buried too many regrets to fear another fight. Words were traded sharp as knives, the gang demanding Sarah, threatening fire and rope. But Jace's silence spoke louder than defiance, and when one man moved too close, his body hit the dirt before his gun even cleared leather. The others hesitated, realizing too late this wasn't the broken rancher they'd heard about. This was the ghost they all feared, the gunslinger who'd vanished years ago but never truly died. Inside, Sarah clutched Ellie tight, her heart racing with dread and awe. For she saw now that the man she had once loved was no longer running from his demons. He was ready to face them head-on, even if it meant turning the Turner Ranch into a battlefield. The night ended with smoke curling over the hills, and silence broken only by the crackle of dying flames. The sheriff's men scattered or broken, their reign of fear finally shattered by a cowboy who refused to let go of the child that destiny had placed in his arms. Sarah wept as she confessed again that Ellie was his blood, but Jace only smiled through the exhaustion, pulling the little girl close and vowing aloud that no lawman, no outlaw, no dark shadow of the past would ever tear them apart again. In the first light of dawn, the ranch no longer looked like a place of defeat, but of beginning. And as Ellie clutched the brim of his hat in her small hands, whispering, "Mama said you might help," just like the first day they met, Jace finally understood. He hadn't just saved her, she had saved him too, giving a broken gunslinger a reason to fight and a family he would guard with every last breath.